Hi, so now that we have our level set up and we're ready to take some staff readings, next thing we need to have a look at is how to read the staff. So when you look at most staffs, if you turn it around the other side, you can see it's like a meter stick on the other side with millimeter graduations. But that can be very hard to read over distance. So normally when we're outside, we use this side of the staff. And if we look down along it, we can see we've got these dots. We've got black dots, white dots, and we have red dots. When we're reading the staff and we're looking through the axial line on the telescope, so the horizontal line, what we do is we look at the nearest value below that line and then we count these dots. So for example, if I was looking through the staff and the axial line was here, what I would need to do is I'd need to read off a meter there. So this value here is a meter. Now it does look like 10, but it's actually a meter. You just don't put a dot on it on the staff. So that height there is 1 meter. And if I go back out, you can see it's about a meter off the ground. So when I'm looking through the staff, through the telescope, and I'm reading that height there on my main axial line, what I do is I count up the dots. So this here is 1 meter, and each of these dots represents 10 millimeters. So that's 10, 20, 30, 40. So here is 1.040 on the staff. Then what we do is we estimate up to the nearest millimeter. And this line here is roughly halfway up this dot. So it's 5 millimeters up from here. So the staff reading here would be 1.045 to the nearest millimeter. And we always read the staff to the nearest millimeter. So meters in 3 decimal places. Let's have a look at another staff reading. So if we're reading this on the staff, if we're looking through the telescope on the level, and the main central axial line was going across here at this point here, we would read that as 0.8, so this is 0.8, although they don't put a decimal point on the staff. And the reason they don't put it on it is, I guess, that it just gets worn out on sites. So, you know, they just don't put it in, and it's understood that that's 0.8, it's not 8. So that's 800 millimeters above the ground. This line here. Then what we do is we count the dots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we estimate to the nearest millimeter. Now the reason to put these dots like an E here, and here you can see it's open and here it's closed, is to show us that this is 50 millimeters. So we don't have to count all these dots because I can just skip up to here. That's 0.85. and that's 6, and then we estimate. So the staff reading here is 0.86 and to the nearest millimeter 3. So 0.86, 2 or 3. Okay, 0.863. Let's have a look at one more. We'll move in here. I'll just mark anywhere. So that point there. So we read the staff to the nearest 100 millimeters. So 1.3, that's 1.3. It's not 13. If I move back out, you can see that's about 1.3 off the ground. So it's 1.3. not 13 as is shown on the staff. And then we count. So 1.3 is that line there. off the ground, and this is 50 millimeters. So we don't need to count all these dots because we know there's 5 of them. So this is 6. Okay, so 1.6 or 1.3 rather, 1.36, and then we estimate as best we can to the nearest millimeter where our line is. So 1.36, and I'd say that's probably 8 or so. So 1.368 is that staff reading. And let's just do one more. Okay, so this staff reading is not 15, it's 1.5. From that line there down to the ground is 1.5 meters. Right, and there's my line. So if I was reading that on the level through the telescope, that would be 1.5, and then we start counting. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 1.59, and then we estimate. So 1.592 or 3. So I'm going to say 1.592 is that staff reading. Now sometimes we have to read the staff when it's held upside down, if we're getting an invert level or a level that's above our heads. And the procedure is exactly the same. So if I look at one of my marks I've done earlier, say this one here. Okay, so if I was reading that with the staff, maybe that's not a good example. Maybe I'll go down to this one here. Okay, so that line there. Now reading that upside down, you're counting down the way. So that's 1 meter, 1.000, and then we count the dots. Each dot is worth 10 millimeters. So 1.045 is that one there. Let's have a look at one more upside down. So again, we're reading down the way. So 1.3, and we'll count the dots down. So this is 1.368 upside down, and so on. Okay, that's how we read the staff.